everything that could go wrong has just gone wrong. Literally, laptop had shut down, wouldn't connect. Hopefully you can hear me. Can you give me a thumbs up if you can hear me? I can't hear it at the moment. Right, it's coming up on the side, but I can't hear it. Is that better? Yay, we're on. Okie dokie. I apologise. I really sincerely apologise for being late. Okay, I'm going to give it a few minutes because I know everyone, I just messed everyone around. Thank you, Lacey. Wow, right, just give me a minute just to chill out and get present in the moment after the stress of all of that. Okay, so I've been having a lot of conversations recently and reading a lot of things that people are writing papers and sending them out on parental alienation, and that's brilliant, absolutely brilliant that people are proactively getting out there and writing and putting something together that hopefully will make a difference. But I just thought it's really important that we talk about our experiences and what we think we can do, because actually the best people are those who are experiencing it or going through it. And I would like us to, I've got my pen and I've got my paper and I'm actually going to write down what we come up with, because it's not an easy subject to tackle, and yet it should be, because it covers, there's already legislation out there that covers child abuse, domestic abuse, and so there's already the legislation in place. The problem is getting professionals to recognise that it's happening. That to me seems to be the problem. But like I say, this is about you. How do you think? How do you think we solve a problem like parental alienation? Suzanne, I want this to be proactive. So I want this to be about how we move forward with this. So any ideas, but I'll just briefly cover what you've asked. So parents, narcissistic parents, they need someone in their life to regulate their emotions, to stop them from feeling inadequate, to prevent them from collapsing and feeling the anxiety of that self-inadequacy, prevent them from feeling the anxiety of being abandoned when a relationship breaks up, and to prevent them from reenacting the childhood trauma that they went through that made them disorganized and narcissistic. When you leave the relationship, they will either immediately get a new supply who will do that, or what they do in parental alienation cases is they turn to the child to become that regulator. So the child sacrifices their own wishes, feelings, genuine authenticity, what they feel, what they witness. They substitute, they surrender all of those things in order to keep the narcissist happy, because when the narcissist isn't happy, it's the child that gets it. And unfortunately, this role reversal and this triangulation of the child into the adult relationship, into that adult role of the attachment figure, can lead to sexual abuse. Children can become that surrogate. They can become the surrogate spouse because they're leaning on them emotionally. So physically would be the next step. Not all narcissists will do that, but it is part of their character. So the problem being is the child, because they've been led to believe that they are this, that's their role. Their role is to take care of the emotions of the parent. Their role is to manage the ups and downs. It's to stop them from going into rages and to stop them having that meltdown. Because the child believes that that is their role, because of how they've been, the symptoms have been induced within them, it can be really hard to get a child to admit that this abuse has happened, because the child sees that that's their role. That it doesn't seem strange to a child, because you've got to remember that normal child development, a child would know if that's wrong. A child would know if someone bullies them and they've had a normal childhood, then they know that that's not right, so they'll speak up and they'll say something. But a child who's been brought up with a narcissist has got a completely distorted sense of reality. They don't understand how normal parental-child relationships exist, partly because of what they're experiencing, but also they've not witnessed that. And so the child won't confess or won't share what's been happening. They won't disclose. That was the word I was looking for. They won't disclose the abuse because they don't see it as abuse. They see it as being their role. They have been so systematically abused to the point where actually it's not abuse. This is our relationship. And so you look at it from normal eyes and we see that it is child sexual abuse, but actually to the child they don't see it that way. But equally they know something's not right, because the narcissist has obviously planted that idea of no one can know about this. This is our little secret, and use threats to ensure that they never disclose this. So there's an element that the child thinks there's something not quite right, but they will keep quiet to ensure that the narcissist remains happy, essentially, to not dysregulate the narcissist. So I hope that's answered your question. So how do we solve a problem like parental alienation? And I guess we can look at it from different levels. We can look at it from a legal standpoint. So legally, what do you think we can do? What changes do you think need to be made? And what I'm going to do is I'm going to play devil's advocate. So if you give me an idea, I'm going to talk it through. Given my knowledge and my experience, I'm going to talk it through and bat it back and forth, just so we can really iron out, would this work? Is this a right approach? And I think it's really good for us to have these conversations. And I think that it's going to be a case of, this is how it's got to be done. It's got to be that we trial things. There are things that I know from my own research, my own experiences, but it's not as simple, because there's two parents essentially accusing the opposite parent of doing the exact same thing. The alienator is accusing the alienated parent of being abusive. The alienated parent is saying, no, hang on a minute, they're the abusive one, they're doing this, they're psychologically abusing. And so people get stuck in the middle. People get stuck in the middle of that. And it's very hard when a child is on the outside looking as though they're siding with one parent, most professionals will then take that as being, well, this person can't be abusive because the child is choosing them. Again, that goes against everything that I know about child development and these child situations. Right, just give me a second. So I'm going to write them down so that they go on. So Mel says needs to be recognised as child abuse. Okay. Happy and Polka Dot says parents who've been proven to have been an alienator should be temporarily blocked. So that's like post recognition. So removal and parenting courses, which I think is here in the UK. That's the threat that Kafkas have put in place. Suzanne, thank you. It's been very difficult for me to find this information. My boyfriend is only... Right, okay. Well, yeah, it is very difficult. But I would say he shouldn't be your boyfriend anymore, Suzanne. He's not going to treat you well. That's not a good sign of how he's going to treat you. And so I would save you in this. So Mel also says that it needs to be recognised that it's not always the resident parent who alienates. Okay, so I'm just going to go through so if you just bear with me while we go through these, and then you can suggest some more. But let's go through them one by one, and we'll back and forth it, see how we come up. So Mel says it needs to be recognised as child abuse. Like I said, it is. The behaviours within parental alienation are child abuse. The problem is they don't recognise them because they're not being presented. When you turn around and say, but he does this, he does that, he does the other, if that was proven and that was witnessed by a professional, you'd hope that at that point they would say, okay, something isn't quite right here. But what normally happens is it's one side says one side says the other. And so it's very hard for professionals to really know what's going on, because they often go to is the child's presentation. And what narcissists are so brilliant at doing is manipulating the child so that they side with them. So then professionals' hands are tied quite a bit, because they look and go, but the child is saying that they love this parent and they don't love that parent. What do we do? And this is where the big problem comes about. So I think it's difficult, because what you're saying is parental alienation essentially needs to be its own separate category of child abuse, as opposed to coming under psychological abuse, emotional abuse, sometimes physical abuse, sometimes sexual abuse. It needs its own specific category. Okay, so knowing what I know about the law, that's going to take a long time. It takes 5 years minimum to pass legislation. So legally, to have it recognised as child abuse, well, the best we can hope for is that it's added to like the Working Together to Safeguard Children Act as a definition, or like coercive behaviour has been added, not as part of the law, but as part of the paper that supports the law. So that would be one thing. So I'm going to write that down and put added to Working Together to Safeguard Children. Okay, hope that answers it, but if you want more, come back. So Polka Dot says removal and parenting courses. Yeah, but that absolutely, in an ideal situation, the alienating parent, the narcissistic alienating parent, contact would cease until they've undergone therapy, and if they're not willing to undergo therapy, then it's only supervised visitation. That is the ideal world. The problem that we've got is getting to that point. Mel says it's not always a resident parent who alienates. Again, that's a brilliant point, because we need to be making sure people look at the behaviours that are around it, because actually the term parental alienation, I don't like it. I only use it because it's recognised. It's not what I use, because I prefer disordered parenting, because actually it's just one of a symptom of their parenting style. It's huge, but it's not the only thing. There's a lot of other issues around narcissistic parenting, and so disordered parenting covers the other personality disorders, which are equally problematic for children. And so looking at it from that point of view, I prefer disordered parenting to parental alienation, because it does imply that in order to alienate, you have to have control of the child. Essentially, you have to have them in your possession to push them out. And actually, parental alienation is a lot of different behaviours, and it can be the very subtle way that they turn children on them. So again, that comes down to education. So education on the behaviours as opposed to terminology. Okay. Right, let me go back. I tried to talk to him about terrorism and nothing else, but he did not say anything wrong. Yeah, well, Suzanne, I think you need to step away now, because it will be horrible for you. So definitely, yeah, and that's what they'll do, Mel. They will absolutely. It's all very very subtle, because they put all of their feelings onto the child, but then make the child believe that they're their feelings. Like I said, I'm reading a lot about it at the moment, and it's mind-blowing how they do it. This is all part of what we need to train people on. Kafka should have more training to pick up on alienation. Absolutely, Suzanne. So training, again, I think, again, as I've covered before, I think it's about, because they hate the term, professionals hate the term parental alienation. One, because they're always being goaded on it and told they don't know what they're doing, which we know they don't, but they don't like being told that they don't know what they're doing. So they've got their back up about the term. So that's why I'm kind of rebranding, because I think that actually parental alienation is just one symptom of disordered parenting. There's a lot of other things that disordered parenting parents do, and parental alienation is what happens when the relationship ends. But actually, when you're in the relationship, in intact families where there's a narcissist, these children are still being abused within that environment. So it's about training them to see all of the pieces and not just the end explosion at the end of the relationship. I am Melanie. I am looking at this. I'm in Lincoln, in the UK, and what I wanted to do was I wanted to get it right here. I wanted to create a model in Lincoln and then take it to another county, and then another county, and then another county, as opposed to which a lot of are doing, and I support them in that, and I absolutely applaud them in what they're doing. But until we know something that does work, it's very easy to give a lot of advice. So I am working on training judges. I've got some good connections that have been made. Got a really influential lady here in Lincoln who's on board, and she's going to help. She's high up in the legal side, and she's going to help with that. But I'm not going to release any more information on that at the moment. But that's happening. So yeah. It does. Narcissists like to drag it out, because the more time that they have with the child, the more they can manipulate them, and also it keeps them away from you. Yeah, because I mean, it goes back to what we've talked about before, and that I know as a social worker, you go into every single case because there's legislation. There's a lot in the Human Rights Act about the rights of the parent, the rights of the child to family life. This is always on our mind when you're a social worker. You're doing assessment, and even when you've identified abuse, you have to prove categorically 100% that this is happening, and therefore the children are best removed. And that's really hard to do, and that is part of why social work is so difficult, is because actually and without going into too much detail, the cost has gone up. The cost of going to court for social worker, for say social care, to say we want to remove, they have to have categoric proof. Like the police, they have to literally do a police inquiry, a social work police inquiry, so they've got all the evidence, because if they don't, their own legal team within the council will say, no, we can't take it to court, because they can't risk losing, because it will cost them money to then go back. So this is more time spent, the child is spent in their care or in foster care, all of which interrupts the attachment. But this is part of the process. So there's a bigger issues around child abuse and everything, and they need to be addressed as well. So parental alienation taps into a lot of things that are wrong with the system, which I think is why one, it's so emotive, but also why it's so problematic for so many people. Judges end up giving more. Yeah, okay, so he'll say I'm the alienator and just believe him. Yeah, and also that's the part of the problem is that because there's all this public backlash about parental alienation and fathers' rights, which I absolutely 100% support. Children's rights to both parents, I'm absolutely 100% support that. But what you find is that sometimes you have judges or CAFCAS workers who will then take sides because they don't want to be seen to be pro-mum or even pro-dad sometimes, and so they will kind of go the opposite and be very much for dads, because even though they're being presented with some information, it's part of the bias. But also what we have to remember is that narcissists are expert psychological. Oh, I'm really sorry, I've got a lot of hair. They're expert psychological manipulators. So people easily fall under their spell because they're so good at it. They are so good at telling everyone what they want to hear. They're so good at presenting themselves as a victim because this is what they do all their lives. The problems I encountered with trying to prove my ex was causing parental alienation is very difficult as social workers. Well, it does actually. Here in the UK, this is what I find really frustrating, and again, I don't want to get on my soapbox about this, but when I was social work. So when I was a social worker, blimey heck, when I was a social worker, we had a brilliant framework. We had the Common Assessment Framework, which looks at, it's a triangle and it covers the three main points of child development, parental capacity, and wider community. So we look at and we ask questions about their family history, the parents' family history, talk to all people associated with the children, and actually it's a really thorough assessment and it is brilliant, and I don't know why they don't use it more, but they keep changing. Councils keep getting this fandangled new approach that, oh, we're suddenly going to introduce this and we're suddenly going to introduce that, and it's whatever the latest craze is. And actually the Common Assessment Framework is everything you need it to be. It covers all the things that we're talking about here, and that's why in the documents I share, I always refer to that triangle, because to me it covers everything, and it's what social workers should be using, and they should be assessing family dynamics and family history as well, because it's generational. The attachment disorder within parental alienation and narcissistic behaviours is generational. So you'll often find a grandparent who is also narcissistic or has a personality disorder and alienated someone. So it's even more important to do that. And the narcissist would say that because they want the sympathy. They would share that openly, that they had this terrible childhood, because they'd want the sympathy, and they'd be giving it away. So this is what I was saying. Actually, we should have the systems in place to recognise parental alienation. They're just not being used. Oh, you're welcome, Melanie. And I really hope that certainly over the next 12 months, we start seeing some real change in Lincoln. Because I'm gathering up people who are really committed to making these changes. So, all right, Carol, you're welcome. My social worker couldn't do anything as my children. No, they won't talk about what happens. But as social workers, we know that we work with children that have been abused. That's the role of a social worker, is to work with children who have been abused, and we know that they don't. We know that they don't. You look at the Barry Bethnal, the case, the footballing coach. How many years later? 20 years later, as adults, these people are coming out. Kids don't say it. Kids do not speak up, and we know that, and yet we ignore all the other clues that are around the child and purely go with it. The other thing that I find interesting, and I'm a massive advocate for hearing the voice of the child, I am. However, I do not think the voice of the child should be gospel, purely because if you look at criminal cases, they're known to be unreliable witnesses. Their cognition, their memory recall, they're not going to be 100% because of their age. They haven't developed those areas of the brain properly. And yet Kafkas will go and they'll say to them, what do you want? What's happened? We'll take that as being 100% gospel. And yet we don't in other criminal cases. And I think that that's something that needs exploring. I'm not saying we don't talk to the children. I'm not saying that we don't take their wishes. I just think under the current structure, we're not actually helping children by having that, because the children are terrified to say the truth, and the children don't even recognise, because their own reality has been distorted so much that they don't think there's a problem. They actually think that the parent is good and then protective and all of those things. What can you say to a parent to make them understand that you can't? You can't in terms of narcissistic abuse. The one difference between narcissists and the other personality disorders, such as borderline, antisocial, is that they don't accept that they're at fault in any way. Borderlines will ask for help. Borderlines will go and be on medication and have therapy because they want to change. They hate feeling in pain. They hate being scared. They hate that. But a narcissist will go, it's all yours. You made me feel like this. You are the problem, not me. And so they don't go and ask for help. So you depending on what their personality is, you can't change them. They are who they are. Like I said, Suzanne, the narcissist just is incapable. They don't have empathy. They haven't built the structures in their brain to be able to empathise, and so they don't care. They can't register that they're hurting. All they care about is them not hurting. They will do whatever they can to not feel pain, and that includes hurting everyone around them. So this is why us around need to be doing this work. Okay, we have you fighting for us all. I am trying. I've got made some really good connections. I've got some really good people involved, so I'm really grateful for those connections. It's brilliant. Can't say that enough. But how can us good parents minimise the damage? Right, minimising the damage is essentially thinking of all the things that the narcissist is going to be doing. So what the narcissist is doing is trying to create a disorganised attachment. So they are being threatening. They are making them question what they see, what they hear. They are twisting what they say. They are basically wanting them to hear this. They want the child to say what they want to hear, so the child won't speak their own truth. So you do all the opposite to that. You do everything the opposite to what the narcissists do. So you believe them when they say something. You believe them, even if it's I thought I saw a fairy in my bedroom. You say, "Oh my, that is wonderful. That's because you're so special that the fairy came to see you." You, if they tell you, I don't know, something happened and it's farcical, you believe them. You give them. You're not. It's not about. I know that probably sounds a bit cuckoo, but actually, what you're doing is you're reinforcing their sense of what they're saying. You're reinforcing their belief, because I always think that with when kids say stuff like that there's an element of some sort of truth in there, but it is about doing everything you can to counteract what the narcissist is doing. A court system so adversarial doesn't help anyone, let alone children. I think that the court system is problematic. I think that it's too long-winded. I think that There's no real consequences within the family court system. So people can lie on oath within a court system. They can lie. They can not turn up. They can break orders, and yet there's no consequences for that. And I think that needs addressing as well. So I'm going to write that down. Consequences. And it can be a very, very scary place. And you can feel, and because it's so secret as well, you feel that there's no accountability within that. You feel very alone, and that actually everyone's against you when they're not. We should all be on the same side. That's the key to family court, is actually you should all be on the side of the children. All of you should be on the side of the children. And so, but it doesn't seem like that often. It doesn't seem like that to those that are experiencing it, and that's problematic, and that does need addressing. And the only thing I can do with that, again, is just talk to people in that system, talk to the legal framework and the people within that, lawyers, solicitors, barristers, judges, and just convey those concerns, really. Yeah, obviously we don't know, Happy, we can't say what type of narcissist they are, but I'm guessing you've done your research. In my case, they're not convinced my 17-year-old son to say I was the abusive one. Yeah, they do, and they do, like I said, the methods that they go to are incredible, scarily unbelievable, how they tap in to the child and how they distort everything for the children. The abuse, I mean, the long-term abuse of that is astonishing. And essentially, it just creates a disorganized attachment and creates that generational problem. So children who have a disorganized attachment can grow up to have a disorganized attachment to their own children, which is why your role as a protective parent is to go against all of these things, is to recognize what the narcissist parent will be doing and do the opposite. I'm trying to deal with my second child. She was the one singled out as the narcissist golden child, the easy one. She's a challenging character, I believe it's... Yeah, absolutely. Well, think about it. Secure attachment is, when you're a baby and you cry, you know that your parent's going to come. That when you've got a dirty nappy, they're going to change your nappy. When you're hungry, they're going to feed you. You both pick up on that, and there's this back and forth, and the mirroring goes on, where if the child cries, the mum or the dad comforts, and it's reciprocal, and it's a wonderful experience, and you grow up thinking everything's great, I'm secure, I'm happy, I'm loved, and you grow up to be that. When you've got one parent who isn't capable of giving you any of those things, is totally not in tune with you at all, that's going to affect how you view future relationships, and that includes the ones with their other parent, siblings, and then relationships. It's very damaging. Do you think magistrates should be presiding in place of family law trained judges? Well, magistrates aren't trained at all. So I think the problem is, how much power do we give? This is part of the issue, is how much power, who are we giving the power to? Because ultimately the judge or a magistrate, all their role should be is to take on the information given and use the law to make a decision. So as long as whoever's residing knows the law, we should be safe. That's the theory, isn't it? That whoever is presiding over the case should be knowledgeable of the relevant law and therefore fit everything into the law and make a decision. There's no jury or anything like there is in criminal cases, so that's what the role of Kafkas and all of those, they're kind of in that role. So a big part of the family law system is, where does that power lie? Because actually it lays with the people around, the people, essentially the jury. So the other people who are presenting their side, who are listening to the evidence. And so we need to look at that, I think. So looking at the power situation within family court, because in some courts the judge will absolutely say, I'm just here to preside, so I will make a decision based on all the information given to me. But you get some judges who may well be narcissists themselves, who think they're above it all and they can make the decision, and they'll go against all the advice given to them and make their own decision. And so that's another area for us to look at, is that power situation, and how do we make sure that those sort of things aren't happening. I didn't watch Skins, I'm afraid. And that is scary, and this is what they do, and it's, like I say, the best thing for you to do is to build her self-esteem, work with her to boost her confidence, to make her believe herself, believe what she's feeling, what she's seeing. Because what the narcissist will do is the narcissist will make her question that. So what you were saying the other week, with what she was saying about him convincing her that there'd been glass on the floor. She obviously can't remember that herself, but he's implanted that memory for her to believe. So for you, your role is just to show her what the reality was. Take photos, like Polka Dot suggested last time. Take photos of the things that you do. Document her real childhood and show her what it really is, and get her to talk. So at the end of the day, talk to her. Have you had a nice day? And just get her to express her interpretation of the world, because that's what the narcissist is going to twist. They're going to twist their interpretation of the world, because that's how they get their power, and that's how they manipulate. He always singled out one of our sons as the golden child. They do, because they like to play people off against one another, and the golden child was essentially their regulator. So this child was the person that made them feel good about themselves. So they got that child to perform, and essentially they're a performing monkey, all to make the narcissist feel better about themselves. Right, so being hypervigilant isn't going to help, I'm afraid. I know that's hard, but you need to be relaxed, because your daughter will pick up on that, and your daughter will sense that there's a threat, and she's not going to know where that threat is coming from, so she might assume it's coming from you or from someone else, and you don't want to make her scared. You don't want to make her anxious. So you have to try and relax, and you have to make that a priority, essentially, and really try in front of her, relax, and put her needs top of it, so that you're talking to her about how she feels. You are helping her to express anything that's going on. If she like you said, that she said that you were a parasite, you don't need to be angry about that or anything. You just say, oh really, and what does that mean? What do you mean when you say that I'm a parasite? What do you understand by that? Just explore it with her, because it's a word, and a word that she would never know what it means. He's told her to say it. So it's about breaking those things down. I know it's hard. I do know it's hard, but I think that actually, Elbow the letter lie detectors won't work, because the narcissist, what happens in the narcissist brain is they distort, and I'm not talking about distorting it like say, what? Let me think of something. Okay, can you see this? Okay, this is red. I know that that's not true. I know that that's not. I know it's black, but I'm saying out loud it's red. But what the narcissist does is actually the narcissist 100% believes when they say that's red, it's red. They believe it's red. So a lie detector wouldn't pick up on the lies. A lie detector does not work. Unfortunately. I'm sorry to burst that bubble, but understanding that this is why, I mean, people have criticised and said, why do you talk about this? Why do you bang on about narcissism? And actually, for me, because if we don't understand what we're dealing with, how the hell are we going to beat them? So we need to find a new way. We need to lie detectors won't work because they believe the lie, so they pass. So it'd actually go against you because they genuinely believe that you are a threat. When they say that you're abusive, they believe that. They believe that, so they would pass. Yeah, absolutely. They're always trying to find someone that they can manipulate and exploit. Season 1 of Skins, a narcissist and their credit high function autistic. I didn't watch it. I feel left out now. I might have to see if I can get it on Netflix or something. Oh, yeah, I do remember Melanie. I do. I take it on board because I do want to help, and I think that I can hear how hard it is for you, and I really want to make that better, and I know that I can't directly make that better, but I will do whatever I can to try and make things better in the long term, and obviously support you in the short term as much as I can. Don't respond to any of the attacks, Melanie. Our job as the innocent parties to keep our bubble as fun. Yeah, she's right, absolutely. In trying to defend attacks all the time, you're not able to be that parent that they need you to be. They need you to be relaxed. They need you to be in tune with them. They need you to be able to respond to their emotions rather than your own. And so as hard as that is, and I do understand, I really do. I know I felt that. I absolutely felt that. I was so scared and so angry and so frustrated. That's all I could feel. And it ruined me. It absolutely ruined me because that wasn't being me. And so you do have to find a way to get back to being your true self and the loving, caring parent that you are. Yeah, exactly. And I'm so pleased, Polka Dot, that your kids have done that. And it's proof, Melanie, if you haven't read that, I think that really will help that it does work. She said her kids have stayed resilient and able to get through it because she provided that opposite environment. So thank you so much for saying that. I think that gives so much reassurance. Yeah, exactly. I think that this group support really does help, and having these conversations helps massively. I wish when I was going through it, I'd had people to talk to. Would it not disprove the lies if I took one, though? I see what you're saying. So you're saying that a truth, when you say, did you abuse the children? And you say no, and it comes back as being a truth, then yes, there would be that, but it's still that that they'll just fire something else. They'll keep firing, and this is always the problem. So yeah, I think that's a really good point. I hadn't thought of it that way. So really, that's a really interesting point. And I would be interested to consider that perspective, and I'll talk to I'll think that through a bit more. And I'll talk to people and talk to the solicitors and see what they think about that. I know lie detectors aren't used in the UK at all. So there's another hurdle there to cross, but I definitely will look into it and consider it. There's lots of psychopaths on TV. And the thing is, I come from a world of rainbows and unicorns. My life was happy, and I have lovely parents, and to be plunged into this dark world was whoa. So I'm sure I've watched many programs with narcissists and psychopaths. I know I have. I could name films, but it didn't personally resonate with me in the way that it would now. And I think we all feel like that now. You notice. Thank you. I'm weird not weird, but it's my personality that I have to understand something. When in social work, I had a case where there's personality disorder, and I knew nothing about personality disorders, and so I googled and I read, and I still didn't really get it, but I gave myself a better understanding. No, none of my other colleagues would have thought to have done that, but I have to understand it. I feel like if I know what something is, I've got a better chance of dealing with it. It kind of, and for me, I could detract myself then. I was able to look at it from a objective point of view rather than being in it. I was able to look from the outside in, and for me, that was huge because I could detach from the horrible feelings that I had. All of a sudden, I could look at it from and research and an understanding point of view, and I was able to let go of my feelings. So that's just how I felt. That's a good that's a good point, Carol. Melanie Carol says, have you got any relatives or friends that could take the pressure up for a little bit, just to so you could like go for a spa day or something, just to relax for a bit. There are knocks everywhere, and you will see them. Unfortunately, but it's good. It's a protective factor. It's what we have. It's part of our development, our human development, that when we're aware of a threat, we do become sensitive to it. Obviously, it can go the other way and we become hypersensitive. So it's finding that balance. I really have a child born in narcotics, did not diagnose PTSD, and the rest she tried. Yeah, no, it's terrifying, isn't it? And I feel like I feel stronger for coming through it. I don't regret it because I'm doing this, which I love, and it has opened my eyes. But it is a baptism of fire, and it's not one I'd wish on anyone. Does that make sense? Wish I'll say as I find you, sir. Thank you. In it, that's part of what I do. That's part my. I have a train. I've just set up back end of last year, beginning of this year. Just set up training company on this, dedicated to this, and I'm working my way through professionals here in Lincoln. Like I said, I can only do the environment that I'm in, so I'm working with counsellors at the moment. Then we're going to look at education, social work, and just like try and educate them on the realities of what it's like for a child being raised by someone with a severe personality disorder. I want to make that point as well, just for anyone. Lots of people have personality disorders and they can function and they can be good parents. What I'm talking about is the severe forms of these that can't parent. So you'll have people with like borderline who they'll go on parenting classes, they'll look and they'll want to make those changes and they'll do it. Narcissists won't ever go on a parenting course because that would imply that there's a problem with them. So they're the more severe personality disorders. But I just wanted to make that clear because I'm not here to bash people who have these problems. Hold on, let me just go back a little bit. Main character played by Tim Roth. Yeah, I haven't seen that either. I don't watch much telly. Relatives and friends just tell me to stop worrying as my daughter will work it out for herself one day. Yeah, and that is part of the trouble. But rather than talk to them, I think what Carol was suggesting is rather than talk to them about the problem, just say, can you look after her for a bit? I'm going to go and look after myself for a day. So you don't need to explain because they won't understand. You can't understand until you've been through it. You just can't. So rather than talk to them about this problem, just ask them to look after her and go off and have some time for yourself. I watched several videos about narcissists lately talking about how to recognize a narcissist in under 5 minutes. When they ask you to do something for them without malice or any reactions, just calmly say no, then sit back. The narcissist. I think that's interesting, because I wonder how they would. I think if you can look at micro expressions, but I think in that early stages when they're trying to impress, I don't know how they'd react. But it's certainly something I'm going to try when I'm out there in public. I will give it a go and I'll let you know. Talk to people and see how they respond. But yeah, I personally think that will depend on how. But you can look at micro expressions. You can look at their eyes, look at their mouth, and they might say, "Okay, that's fine," but there might be something in the eyes or the mouth that makes them go, ugh. After gaining my freedom and getting out of the marriage, going out with friends, having fun again. Yeah, it does. It is. And getting out, you become very socially isolated. You become almost a hermit. And rebuilding, partly because you've probably lost contact with people, because one, the narcissist didn't want you to have friends and go out, but two, you probably didn't want to go out anyway because it wasn't worth all the hassle. And you probably lost your confidence, lots of reasons. So yeah, getting out there is a big place, and it's a really good place to start. But just start small, start with little steps. Her females start to process their childhood in their 30s. Okay. Well, I'm coming out of that now, so hopefully I've processed mine perfectly already. I feel I want to spend as much time as possible with it as one day. This thing is now, and I do understand that living in fear is not healthy. It is, and that's children pick up on these things. The children will, even if you're trying to act okay, that fear is going to be there. That fear is within you, and that will come out. So I think you need to look, and I get what you're saying, and maybe not a spa day, but just go to the cinema or something. Just try and do something that's for you and is giving you that time away to process, as opposed to doing it in front of her, trying to let go of that fear. And I know how hard that is, and I don't have a quick fix, but in a few of my blogs I've talked about how to emotionally move forward with things, and fear is not a good emotion. You can't live in fear. It's a horrible place to be. And it's a horrible place for the child to be in as well. So whilst I understand what you're saying, living like that is not good, because it will drag you down, and then you'll be no use. And I know that sounds horrible. I hope you understand why I'm saying what I'm saying. I'm not criticizing. I'm trying to help. Micro expressions. She would open her eyes wide. Yeah, she knew you though, Elbow, didn't she? She knew you. So there's no micro expressions. What we're talking about is in those early meetings, looking for the response. And I think they may be open about it. They may do what he said and open the eyes wide, the mask slipped off, and the devil face would appear. But I think that wouldn't come until they felt that you were under their control. I think that if you just met someone and you were on a date, for example, I think there'd be micro expressions, but I don't think they'd let the mask slip at that point. They might not call you again because they think this person can't meet my needs, but I don't think they'd lash out. I just that's my personal. I'm not saying it would. That's just my personal. Oh, bless you. Yeah, and it is. I've had threats made against me, and I don't go to a certain shop anymore because I've had threats made against me that if they see me, they'll kill me. So I don't go there, and if I see a car like that they drive, then I get that. But I've started to get stronger to it. I've started to go, you know what? So what? I'm not gonna let this stop me living my life. I'm not gonna stop it. I haven't gone to that shop when I think that they might be there, and I would avoid if I knew that they were gonna be there. But I'm not gonna not go to places, and I'm gonna try and manage that. It's really hard. It is really hard because you've got lots of triggers. There's so many triggers, but you'll get there. Don't put pressure on yourself that it's suddenly going to go. It won't. But you need to work towards healing, really. Yeah, Happy and Polka Dot says, I've been there, Mel. The fear freezes your abilities as a mother. Your child will miss out on the important nurture from you. And she is right, and I know that's probably not what you want to hear, but living in fear isn't a good environment. You're and this is part of the PTSD, is that hypervigilance. And there is treatments, meditate. I can't remember if I spoke about this last week, and if I did, I apologize, but meditation is something you can do by yourself before you go to bed. I listen to the same meditation every night, 20 minutes, just to relax, get rid of it, and put me in a better frame of mind. Start there. Go on YouTube and just put in calming meditation. And just when you're in bed, before you go to sleep, put your earplugs in and just listen to a meditation. It's really good for PTSD, meditation. It's proven, the NHS support it. Mindfulness, yoga, all of those things. But meditation is something you can start with. You could do at home, so you're not leaving her on her own. Do it just before you go to bed. You'll probably have a really good night's sleep as well, which is a bonus. But it's something you can do, no cost. Just do that. Right, we've been on nearly an hour, so if you've got any last few questions, do give us a go. I saw season 2 of Strange Things. In one episode, both father and son were psychopathic, and I couldn't get over. They're on TV, they're everywhere. Melanie, start watching ASMR videos. It cured my PTSD. There you go, see? There are resources out there that you can access for free. There is... American Psycho is probably... he's called a psycho, but that's because... And he has got psychopathic tendencies, but he's in a very narcissistic environment. So that's just one off the top of my head, but I'm sure there's lots. I think they make as horrible as this sounds, I know this sounds really twisted, but they make really interesting TV characters because you hate them. They create that intense response from us. And so they're in a lot of TV shows so that we have that response. It's easy to spot the character that we should hate because that's their personality. But obviously for those of us that have witnessed them firsthand, there's a triggering element to that. You have Alexa ask you to help me sleep. Yeah. Yeah, I listen to lots of things. I do affirmations every morning, meditation every night, and it makes a huge difference. But you've got to ease yourself into it because it won't feel natural because it's not something we're taught. We're not taught this. And this is another thing for your daughter, actually, and for those of you with kids. Please encourage your kids to do mindfulness, to do positive thinking, to do affirmations, because it really will protect them. It creates a very calming effect. It's very much for the wellness of mind. I really would try and get your daughter to do it, Mel, as well. I think that's a really something we should teach in schools, is mindfulness and how to think positively, because the power of the mind is incredible. We can create anything we desire with our mind, and yet we spend most of our time living in fear and only focusing on the here and now. We often then feel disappointed. So reconnecting is a really good thing to do. So meditation is a great place to start. Oh, that's a shame, Happy. Yeah. Is it? That's brilliant. That's brilliant, Melanie. I think more schools should teach. I think more schools should teach the power of positivity. And I was watching a great video. I'm gonna call it a day in a minute, but I just want to share this with you. I watched a brilliant video today about the science of happiness, and it was talking about we have natural happiness. So when you eat a chocolate bar or have a glass of wine or laugh, that's a natural happiness. But we can also have manufactured, or what word did he use? We'll use manufactured happiness, which is essentially you can make yourself happy. And do you know what? Body doesn't know the difference at all. So manufacturing your own happiness has to be a skill that we teach our children and we practice for ourselves. So that's why I say, how can you be proactive with adult child who uses silent treatment against you? How old is it, your child, and how old are they, Lacey, sorry. It's not, no. It was on YouTube. It was a TED talk, and it was called The Science of Happiness. It's just, if you just put that in YouTube, Science of Happiness. It was a TED talk. Can't remember the guy's name, but it was really interesting. Yeah, I love doing these as well, Mel. It's really good to talk to you guys and to get your feedback, and I think this has been productive and lots of things for me to look at. Yeah, Lacey, if you want to let me know the age, I'll give you a quick answer. But essentially, I mean, I'm assuming that they're living with you. If they're living with you, then, and they're an adult child, then I would encourage them to move out. But you've got to teach them to communicate. I mean, if they've learnt that, it's really hard. Can I make videos to recognise narcissism? Well, kind of that's what my videos do talk about. They look at the behaviours, but they're quite specific topics within one. So it's not just about narcissism. I talk on Tuesday. I did one about the hoovering behaviours, because obviously it was Valentine's Day. So have a look through my videos under narcissistic abuse, and you'll find different topics in there. But if you want me to do specific, so do you mean how to recognise narcissism on a date? Okay, is he still living with you, Lacey? So Alina, when you say recognise narcissism, do you mean like on a date? When you first meet someone, what are some of the red flags? And yet he's living with you. So where's his dad then? If his dad's the best thing since sliced bread, why is he not living with his dad if he's so great? Why is he not living on his own if does he not work? Or anyway, dealing with the silent treatment is really hard because you can't make them talk. There's nothing you can do. There's no magic word that you can say. You can't. It's at 24. This is a learnt behaviour. He's learnt that if he can't problem solve. He can't deal with conflict. And so if he thinks you're going to say something that's going to upset him, or you're saying stuff that's upsetting him, he shuts down and he'll turn. If he does silent treatment on you and you're visiting him, I would walk out. give him that reinforcement that actually you're not going to accept this. When you're ready to talk, you come to me. I'm not going to stand here and beg you to talk to me. If you don't want to talk, that's fine. So that's showing him that you respect his decision, but that you're not going to accept being ignored when you're visiting him or he's visiting you. So there you go. Videos for autistics. Okay, let me write it down. Just off the top of my head with that, the problem that with autism is they equally can't recognize someone else's feelings. It's not that they lack empathy in the same way a narcissist does. They're not able to read faces, or that they're not able to read faces and understand how someone else is feeling. And so they would be, I'm trying to think how that would work, because what would a narcissist get out of someone with autism who isn't able to emotionally read them? Because essentially, and so the only my thing would be for autistic people is they're going to be vulnerable to be manipulated and exploited. I wouldn't necessarily, so maybe financially exploited would be, is that where you're heading with that? Does that ring true? I am going to call that day in a minute because we've way gone over. My first question would be, did you experience any childhood trauma? Yeah, we have that conversation, me and my friend. We always say, right, okay, tell me all about your childhood. Is date one. What was your childhood like? What's your relationship like with your parents? Do you see them a lot? How do you get on? Because, yeah, that reveals everything. How we get on is a massive clue. Doesn't mean that they're definitely going to be. It's how they describe them. It's using the description. Always, for me, this is what I'm going to be looking out for, is, are they always playing the victim or are they always playing the hero? Because actually, most of us are quite self-deprecating and we'll bring ourselves down, but actually a narcissist will always play one of those two roles. So for me, that's what I'm looking out for, is, are they always playing the victim or are they always playing the hero? And if everything's always someone else's fault or they're always the one that rescues, then that's, to me, is concerning. Change a lot of ways, something out. Back it up with, I love you, resilient treatment, I think. My son lives on his own. He has a wife and a son and baby on the way. Well, I guess for you, maybe his wife would be the person to try and form a relationship. I'd reach out to her. Reach out to her, but just be loving. Just be loving. Okay. I'll think about that, Elena. I will think about it. Like I say, I'm from a relationship point of view, I think they'd be cheated on. I think that a narcissist would be in a relationship with someone with autism purely for financial, or putting a roof over their head, and that's about it really. They're not going to get anything emotional from an autistic person, because the narcissist relies on being with someone who can pick up their subtle clues on how they're feeling. So when they come home from work, they've got a face like thunder, they expect everyone to respond to that and change their behaviours. And someone with autism would struggle to do that because they can't read their emotions. So I don't think there would be that sort of relationship in terms of them relying on them in that sense. So I think that someone with autism would be vulnerable more financial manipulation, I think. That is just off the top of my head, but I will have a think about it. But that's my gut instinct at the moment. Right, I'm going to call it a day because it's 9:15, and yeah, I'm gonna go and put my pajamas on. Yeah. Yeah, of course. Narcissist does anything, and they don't do it for. They do it for effect. But there's a lot of contributing factors. You can't just say that they're narcissistic because of this or that. There's got to be a collection of things. But anyway, thank you all so much for being here. Really, really appreciate it. Thanks, Michael. Thanks, Melanie. Thanks, Carol. Thanks, Elena. Thanks, Elbow the Letter. Thanks, Happy and Polka Dots. And who's the other one? Lacey. I think that's everyone I've said. If I've missed anyone, I sincerely apologise, but I do appreciate you being here and for commenting. Okay, so see you next week at 8 o'clock. All right, take care. Speak to you soon. Bye-bye.